Hello, and well, before we move on to the main event for this video, this is a little bit of a clip from a arcade assault match that I flew, squatted up with, as you can see, Clyde Frog, CJAS, and Black Ghost Killer. I was squatted up with these four guys, and we went up into a 4.0, 4.3 assault arcade match, and we ended up getting we ended up going up against the Japanese. So right now we're about halfway through the all of the all of the waves. And as you can see, I've died twice, and I have 11 kills, 4 assists, and I started out in an ME410 with a 50mm gun, and that proved actually pretty successful, despite the fact that it was totally stock. And now I have jumped into a TA-154. Now, the person that I would like to point out is actually the guy in the Hurricane behind me. Clyde Frog. You remember him? Well, it isn't quite yet, but we're going to be seeing him here in a bit. And I would just like to express my grave disappointment to not so much to AOD itself, but rather the recruitment process. And I think coming up here is what I mean. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly turn this on. And actually, no, it's not here yet. It's got a little bit farther left to go. But yeah, and I can tell because Clyde is still in the Mark IV Hurricane. No, it wasn't this. I think it was the next wave. Yeah, here it is. So, right up there in front of me is Clyde. He's in that Hurricane Mark I late. As you can see, there he is, and there's my TA-154. Now, what he is about to do is, so you see him right now, diving. And maybe it's not here. No, I think it was after he dies. Nope, it was this one. And switch to him. He is shooting at me. This is, as you can see, Clyde. This is me. I've taken damage. Now, I'm currently just running away from that Hurricane, who's not on my team, obviously. So, obviously, I'm going to kill him. I'm not going to, let a team killer sit on my ass. Now, unfortunately, I took major damage because I was rammed by the wreck of his Hurricane, and I'm bailing out of that TA-154. Well, Clyde just bailed out of his hurricane, and he is about to spawn right behind me. And there he is. So, once again, he starts shooting at me, and I just firewall the throttle and try to run. And obviously, a TI-154 is always going to outrun a Hurricane. So, this is not something, obviously, this is not something isolated. He is deliberately trying to kill me. A member not only of his own team, but of his own clan. Now, not only am I pissed off about that, but what I am now pissed off about as well is he reported me for team killing. And I can tell you that he reported me for team killing because, well, just watch this. Now, he's about to do the stupidest thing he could possibly do in that thing and go head-on with this TA-154. That was stupid enough. But now, after that Hurricane crashes into the ground, and he does not bail out of his aircraft, because I heard the explosion, he smashes into the ground, or smashes into the river, and then he just sits in like the aircraft selection screen for about 5 or 10, no, not even 5 or 10 minutes, more like a minute or two. And then he goes back to the hangar. Immediately after that, he exits out of TeamSpeak. In fact, actually, no. He exited out of TeamSpeak about 5 minutes before the events that you just saw. Now, this is not an isolated incident even in this match, because he did actually try to team kill Black Ghost's Yak-9T. He was not successful on 5 or 6 attempts, but he did attempt it. So, what I would like to ask is, who's responsible for recruiting this person? And why did you recruit them? Also, why are they still in AOD? Now then, with that little display out of the way, I would like to see this person banned and kicked out of AOD permanently. I will send this clip as a separate clip to War Thunder. Or actually, no, I'm going to post it onto my War Thunder Live page. Or hell, you know what? I'm just going to post this whole video to War Thunder Live. Just, so yeah. For those of you who are interested in joining AOD, no, this is not the standard of player that we have. I am very, I'm very disappointed with this individual's behavior. In terms of AOD, that is definitely not the kind of player that we are. I humbly apologize on his behalf for his actions and his behavior. Even though it had nothing to do with me personally, my deepest apologies. That is not what AOD is about at all. And in fact, with this request to get him banned, I imagine that he is going to be banned. And because of video proof, yeah, I do not believe he is going to be staying in AOD for much longer. I am going to send this straight to the War Thunder CO and request, I'm going to send this video as a PM to the War Thunder CO, and I'm going to request in that PM that this individual be banned. And yeah, I'm not going to accept anything less than that. That's unacceptable. That was deliberate team killing of not only myself, but also he deliberately attempted to team kill another player in this match on his own squadron, and in his own clan, and on his own team. Don't forget, all 4 of us were squatted up in this match, and 5 minutes before the events that you just witnessed, he bailed out of TeamSpeak, and I would imagine after he reported me for team killing, he left War Thunder because he left the game because I did not see him for the rest of the day. So, yes. Now then, after that little tragic adventure, how about we get on to the main event of this video. So, here we are in the first of 2 matches that I have for this video today. Once again, I humbly apologize for that behavior that you just witnessed, and anyone looking to join a clan, that is the only incident of that I have ever seen. So, on behalf of AOD, I humbly apologize for that despicable behavior. But anyway, this is the Messerschmitt ME-262A2A, Schwalbe. This is the Chronicles Reward aircraft from 2 years ago, for those of you who participated in it. This is the, well, it was going to be a 262 with a 50mm cannon and 2 30mm. However, it only has 2 30mm MK108s with a total of 200 rounds of ammunition. 100 per gun. It is also unique in the fact that it is the only Messerschmitt 262 with bombs. It can carry a 500 kilogram or 250 kilos, however, nobody uses them. And it also gets the first of the 2 rocket racks that the Messerschmitt 262A1A gets, this being the 24 rockets. Personally, I do not use those. They are not needed on either variant of the 262 that gets them. So, anyway, this is a spaded, in fact, both of the matches that you're going to see in this video, and this is what I mean by you don't need the rockets. Short burst, Dornier 217, dead. But yeah, both of the matches that you are going to see in this video are a spaded Messerschmitt 262, as well as my opinions on it, and also how to counter a jet. For those of you who, whenever you get into a 6.0 game and see a jet on the enemy team, I'm going to give away their secrets. So, first off, a second Dornier 217, and another easy kill. Now, the Messerschmitt 262. This is so far the one jet that I love more than any other that I've flown. The Messerschmitt 262 is, even though it's the first jet in the game, it's not the worst, obviously. I mean, the Yak-15 and the Yak-17 still exist, and the Kika exists. And hell, the P-80 exists. Although the P-80 is not as bad as it used to be. It's a lot better. So, anyway. What do I like about the Messerschmitt 262? Well, the one thing I love about the 262 is that it's, well, there are several things that I love about the 262. One is that it is very fast. It is definitely capable of outrunning any lower tier aircraft, even in level flight. This thing, it is slow by jet standards, I will say that, but in level flight, without WEP, just on standard 100% throttle, this aircraft will get over 500 miles an hour. Okay, 500 miles an hour in level flight on 100% throttle. That is 100 miles an hour more than any piston-driven fighter can manage with, even with WEP. And here's a P-80 shooting star for you. So he's on fire in the fuel tank, and I'm just gonna, and his engine's dead too. Just keep on shooting him a little bit. His engine catches fire, and then he dies. So there's a jet kill. Honestly, if you're in a 262 and you're in, if there's jets on the enemy team, go after the jets. You're in a jet. You're one of the big boys in the match. Go after the enemy jets. Don't just club props the whole game. Okay, don't be a dick. Okay, you know, you're in a jet. You're one of the only people on your team that's actually capable of countering jets with any form of real efficiency. So do your team a favor. Get rid of them. So yeah. Now, one of the things that I love about the 262 is actually the guns. This variant obviously only has two. It has two MK108s with, like I said at the start, 200 rounds of ammunition. The MK108 itself is not a very good gun, obviously. It has a very poor muzzle velocity. However, it has the highest explosive mass of any shell of 30 millimeters or lower. And it's very, very devastating when you get hit by one of these things. As anybody who has seen a 262 or even a K4 or a G6, G10, or G14 with the 30 millimeters equipped will know, you don't want to be in front of these things. Yeah, sure, the MK108 has the worst muzzle velocity of any gun in the game, except for the 40 millimeters equipped to the Japanese KI-44-2, which you can literally outrun those shells in a prop. But yeah, this aircraft, you don't want to get in front of the guns of this thing. It is, even this variant of the 262 with its two guns, this is the last aircraft you want to be in front of, aside from the Hawker Hunter. And, well, you saw what I did to those two Dorniers. Well, three Dorniers, rather. Well, no. Yeah, it was three Dorniers. And three Dorniers and a P-80 shooting star, although the P-80 was kind of... You fly a P-80, you want to die. You're flying a P-80, you're a glutton for punishment. Oh, and by the way, if you want to know what the skin is, it is the Black Knight of Berlin. It is applicable to the A1A variant of the 262, and you can find it on War Thunder Live if you just search ME262, or 262 ME262A1A if you search that in, or ME262A. It is applicable to both variants of the aircraft, both the A2A and the A1A, although I do not believe that it is that it works with the rocket variants of the 262, these being the C1A and the C2B. And I actually really like this skin. And I should have killed that 109. That was pretty shit on my part. And by the way, I will talk a little bit more in depth on this thing's performance in the next match that we have lined up. There's just not really all that much time left in this match. And this is actually the last kill of the match. It's a Focke-Wulf 190. And I was actually hit by friendly fire on the way through there, and that's what happened to my aileron. But, hell, I got the 190. And 5-0. 5 kills and 0 deaths in a Messerschmitt 262. So, that's a pretty good result. How about we go on with the next match? Alright, and here we go with the second match. And I actually forgot to mention at the start of this, but I'm actually squatted up with a number AOD member. His name is Idiot for Hire. There he is. And he didn't have... He's a damn good pilot, actually. A lot of respect to him. He's a pretty good pilot, although I don't know if he can hold a candle to my achievements, as most people who have been in AOD for 2 years or so will know. Yeah, there's not many people in the game that can hold a candle to me in terms of my skills. But anyway, enough tooting my own horn. So back in the 262, obviously, and what's actually funny about both of these matches was actually this was a series of matches that I played with For Hire. At 6.0, down-tiering this aircraft. This aircraft is 6.3 in the current tree, and actually I believe this should stay the way that it is. Not like a seal clubbing aircraft, but as I don't want to if this thing were any higher, it would be outclassed. Primarily due to the fact that it doesn't have the guns. The 262 A1A is fine at its BR because it has 4 guns. This thing it can't be at 7.3. It doesn't have the guns for it. So yeah, this thing, it should stay at 6.3. So anyway, but yeah, I was down-tiering this aircraft to see what kind of matchmaking we would get. And surprisingly, we were top tier every single match. We were not up tiered actually no, we were up tiered once. But actually no, we weren't up tiered at all. The one time that I got up tiered last night was actually when I was flying 6.0 with the D13. Or not the D13, the D12, down-tiering that aircraft. So yeah, I down-tiered this plane to see what kind of matchmaking I would get out of it, and it was actually pretty favorable. Like I said, top tier every game. And there weren't really many jets on the enemy team. And, well, there goes that Dornier. And somebody is actually not very happy about that, as you are about to see. There you go. Some cunt trying to shoot me down. Let's see, what is that? It's a J2M. So yeah, piece of fucking prick in a J2M trying to team kill me. But anyway, how are the performance stats of the 262? Specifically this variant? Well, in terms of maneuverability for a jet, it is very good. After all, this is the 262 is a very maneuverable jet. In terms of acceleration, oh, and by the way, I love this kill. He had his wingtip smoke on him. Like, haha, you're not so clever now, are you, pal? So yeah, that's 2 kills. So, anyway, the 262 is a very maneuverable jet. You really don't want to go turn fighting props in this aircraft. However, it is capable of outmaneuvering P-80s and F-84 Thunderjets pretty much with ease. Meteors will give this aircraft a problem. Meteor F3s at least, because that's really the only thing that this thing will face. In terms of jets, in terms of British jets actually, other jets that it will face are Yak-15s, Yak-17s, and MiG-9s. And MiG-9s can give 262s problems if the MiG-9 has an altitude advantage. However, the MiG-9 I think has lower energy retention and lower acceleration. I think it's also not quite as maneuverable in a prolonged dogfight as the 262. So, yeah. Well, at least in arcade. I don't know about in realistic. I'm kind of scared to fly a 262 in realistic. But anyway. Another thing that I actually really like about the 262 is once you get this thing to altitude, it is untouchable. On the deck, well, actually, I think I should probably talk about this thing's acceleration before I talk about its altitude performance. And, well, the acceleration of the 262 is not great. But once you get all of the upgrades, it is serviceable. It actually has some pretty good acceleration. And that is a CR-42 biplane, by the way, going head-on with my 262. That's not the last time we're going to see that. So yeah. That made me feel really bad. So anyway, the 262 A2A in particular, its acceleration is serviceable, at least when you get all of the upgrades. Now, obviously, it is lighter than the A1A. However, in terms of flight performance, this thing, this and the A1A, what few differences that they have in terms of their flight performance are so small that it really, you'll never notice it. Not even a good pilot will notice the difference in terms of their performance. So yeah, like I said, acceleration is serviceable. It's better than a MiG-9, and obviously better than any Yak jet. And by the way, yes, that is a Dornier 217 attack aircraft. And I just went head-on with and won against. And that is why you don't want to be in front of the guns of a 262. You will die. As if the previous, couple of kills weren't already information enough. Another interesting thing about the Messerschmitt 262 is that it has very good energy retention. Due to the fact that it has two engine cells, it has much more energy retention than something like a P-80 or an F-84. In terms of the engine placement, I really wish they were closer to the fuselage, but, well, it's fine the way that they are. In terms of climb rate, however, I think the best way to climb in any jet, really, or at least in a 262, is level out and get to about 300 miles an hour, and then pitch up into about a 10 or 20 degree climb, and then you'll be fine. And well, I didn't get that kill on the CR-32. However, I did accidentally just team kill my squad mate. Yeah, that poor Typhoon just flew right in front of the guns of this 262, and I didn't actually notice that I'd killed him until I looked at the kill feed and realized, oh shit, I shot down my squad mate. Sorry. Yes, to any of you watching not in AOD, yes, I did say sorry to my squadron mate. The guy who I showed you earlier in this video did not apologize. In fact, he made it pretty clear that he was not going to apologize. So yeah. Anyway, in terms of climb rate, obviously it's a jet. It's not really the best in terms of climb rate, and I'm going to go back to the hangar and kind of explain that in depth after this match, because there's not much left of this match. So yeah, the A2A, in my opinion, it's a good aircraft. Obviously, it's not the best jet in the world, but it's a good aircraft. I definitely enjoy it. And actually, I'll go on to that in a bit, but yeah, in terms of the climb rate, if you want to stay in a real climb angle, I would say don't really go any higher than about 7 or 8 degrees. Without 10 degrees is probably the max that you want to go if you're not going to level out to 300 miles an hour and then burst climb. If you're not going to do that, then I would say 10 degrees at max. If you want to play it safe, I would say 5 or 6 degrees. Obviously, of course, you can climb at more aggressive angles if you want to, but I don't recommend it just because of the energy loss. Also, in terms of low-level energy retention, this thing will outrun any prop in the game. Now, not from a standstill, obviously. From a standstill, a prop will obviously win. However, once you get to around 400 to 450 miles per hour, even in a dive, the 262 will pull away, just because the prop will lose energy. Like I said in the previous replay, the 262 will under 100% throttle in level flight, get over 500 miles an hour, and it is a spaded 262, but it is not the Rocket 262. That is this variant of the 262, and the A1A can get over 500 miles per hour under 100% throttle in level flight. And that's at any altitude. So we got a 109E that went head on and I got the kill for, and that was pretty stupid. I'm surprised I didn't get killed by that. But anyway, that was the last kill that I ended up getting for that match. Final result for the match was 7 kills, no assists, and no deaths. And this was a win. So anyway, how about go back to the hangar and explain this thing in a little bit more detail. Alright, so here we are back in the hangar. And so yeah, the 262, as you've seen, in the hands of a good pilot, is absolutely lethal, and is probably, against props, one of the best aircraft that you can be flying. Now, obviously, it's not the fastest jet in the game by a long shot. Even at its tier, obviously, it's not the fastest jet. But it is up there. It is a pretty fast little aircraft. And pretty much anything that it can't outrun, it can outmaneuver. So, there you go. American jets, basically, it can outmaneuver them, although it can't really outrun them. So yeah. Now, in terms of the way you fly this aircraft, and the way you fly a jet in particular, I'm going to start out by explaining basically how jets work. For those of you who either don't have jets or haven't really done much research on them, or don't really have much knowledge about jets in particular, I'm going to, for the benefit of the doubt, explain to you exactly how jets work. And the way jets work is, unlike a piston engine, jets rely on intake of air. The way that jets work is air is sucked into the engine through the intakes, and then it is compressed inside of the engine, and then fuel is injected into the engine, which is then ignited and then forced out of the back of the aircraft, which is it is, like I said, basically spat out the back of the plane. And that's how it produces thrust. Now, a propeller-driven fighter doesn't really do this. The way that a prop fighter accelerates is by accelerating the column of air that the propeller is actually the propeller is interacting with. So, and if the fucking TA152C would load, thank you. So the way that a propeller, or at least a piston engine works, is, yeah, sure, it relies on intake of air, but it doesn't rely on intake of air in order to run the engine. Air intake is required for cooling, but that's really it. The way that a propeller works, or a piston engine works, is it accelerates the air hitting the propellers, and it basically forces, the way that actually, and actually if you look at the propeller here, this is probably the best example. It's kind of like a knife slashing this direction. And that's basically with like all propeller blades. And the reason for that is, as the propeller rotates, what it's doing is it's pushing the air column that it's interacting with back. It's pushing it towards the back of the aircraft. And that's how it actually propels the aircraft forward. Now, with a jet, by contrast, it's accelerating a column of air, but it's a much smaller diameter, as you can see. And because of it being a much smaller diameter and it being compressed air being spat out the back of the aircraft, this produces more thrust than a piston engine. Now, the way that you need to fly a jet is completely different from how you fly a prop. Jets are a very, very, very dramatic learning curve from propeller-driven fighters. The way that a jet gets the most amount of effectiveness out of the engine is totally dependent on how much air is that the engine is intaking. So basically, if you're going at 400 miles per hour in a jet, your engine will be much more efficient due to the fact that there is more air being ingested into the engine than if you're going at, say, 100, not 100, but more like 300 miles per hour. At 400 miles an hour, your engine, since it's intaking more air to be compressed, there is more fuel. There is less fuel being injected into more. How do I say this? There is more air that is being compressed into the engine and less fuel. Like, there is less fuel. The fuel to air ratio is lower when you're going at 400 as opposed to 300. And because of this, the engines are much, much more efficient. I can't really exactly describe what I'm talking about here. I'm not really a physics major or anything like that, but I would imagine most of you are probably kind of getting what I'm on about here. So, because of that, you don't want to be making really dramatic climb angles in a jet, because if you're in like a 20-degree climb in a jet, you're not going to have a very your engine's efficiency is going to plummet, even in something like a MiG-15 or a Sabre. Your engine efficiency is going to plummet due to the fact that there's not as much air being ingested into the engine as there would be if you were in level flight. So because of this, with the 262 in particular, because of its low acceleration, a 10-degree climb angle really is the most that you want to put onto the aircraft, and even then, that's stretching it. Honestly, I wouldn't really go any higher than 5 or 6 degrees, and that's really playing it safe. So, in that regard then, how do you fly a jet? And this is going to be primarily targeted towards those of you who are going down the British line and the Japanese line. And I'm talking primarily about the Meteor Mark III and the Kika here. So, with the Meteor Mark III and the Kika, they are very maneuverable jets. They are easily capable of outmaneuvering a Messerschmitt 262. And this is very well known. However, you don't want to get into turn fights even in these aircraft unless you are going toe-to-toe with another jet and there are no other aircraft in the area. You do not turn fight in a Messerschmitt, in a 262, a P-80, a Yak 15, well, a Yak 15 or a Yak 17. You kind of have to. Those are the Yak 15P, the Yak 17, and the Yak 15 are the only jets in the game that you dogfight in. And that's because that's the only thing you can do. Those are the only 3 exceptions to the rule that I am about to give you. So, in any jet, aside from the 3 that I just listed, you do not want to get into a turn fight if there is a single prop in the area. Because even in a Meteor Mark III, a Kika, or hell, even in a Horton 229, which is by far the most maneuverable jet in the game, if there is a single prop nearby, because of the drop in energy that you are going to suffer because of you getting into a dogfight with the other jet, you are going to be at an extreme disadvantage, even in a Meteor, a Kika, or in a Horton. And that prop is going to be able to catch you at that tier, even if you level out and fly straight. And not only that, but if you try to break out of that turn fight, even if you do shoot down that jet in that turn fight, you are going to have to react to the propeller-driven fighter that is now on your ass, and you're not going to have the energy to get away, and you're not going to have the acceleration to be able to dive away. And they are going to kill you. Now, that brings up the question then, how do you fly these things against other jets? Well, against other jets, you obviously, you can get into a maneuvering fight in a 262 when you're going up against another jet like, a P-80 or a MiG-9. But that's only when you two are alone. Or if you have support, mutual support, either from squad mates or friendlies. That's the only time you want to engage another jet in a turning fight, is when you have support. Now, or if you're alone, one of the two. Now, aside from that, the way that you fly a jet, and the Messerschmitt 262 in particular, is you fly these things as boom and zoom aircraft, and that's going to come as a major shock to people going down the Japanese and the British tech tree. Because those of you who are looking to fly your Meteor Mark III, yes, it is maneuverable, but it's slow. And really, you can get some impressive speeds up in the Meteor Mark III, and honestly, I think the Meteor Mark III is probably a plane that you should get into turn fights even with props in, but if you're going to do that, I would be careful. Now with the Kika, by contrast, you can't turn fight in that plane. It just doesn't have the engine performance, and it doesn't have the guns. It is a dedicated boom and zoom aircraft at the best, and that is going to come as a major, major shock to anybody who is going down the Japanese tech tree at the moment. So, if you are currently going down the Japanese tech tree to get your hands on the Kika, the KI-200, the R2Y2, or hell, even the F-30 Sabre, drop what you're doing and go fly a P-47. That is what I can tell you right now. Go fly a P-47 and do it correctly. Go learn how to fly a P-47, do it right, and then go back and research up to your jets. That is what you do. The best way to learn how to fly a jet is to fly a P-47. That really is the best aircraft for learning how to fly a jet properly, is flying a P-47. Now, in terms of... Now, obviously, you're probably also asking the question, well, what entry-level jet should I get then? Honestly, a P-80. Now, the P-80 is a pile of shit. It still is a pile of shit, although once again, it is a lot better than it used to be, especially since the 50 cals have been buffed. However, the P-80 is a very forgiving aircraft in terms of jet-on-jet combat, because the P-80 is one of those aircraft that if you learn how to fly it correctly, like I said, from flying a P-47, then the P-80 is an aircraft that you will be able to very easily run away from any other jet that you are engaged with, and while the 50 cals aren't great, you will be able to get kills in that aircraft very easily if you are a good enough shot and if you know how to fly the aircraft, and if you put yourself in the right position. The MiG-9 and the 262 are really not the best entry-level aircraft, and here's why. The guns are very bad for jet-to-jet combat, and they're also very bad for jet-on-propeller, piston-driven fighters. Specifically, the Bearcat, the Tempest, the Spitfire, the Griffin Spitfires, and the, what is it? The... Oh shit, what is it? The Sea Fury. Sea Fury, that's it. The guns on the 262 and the MiG-9 as well are very bad for shooting down aircraft like that. They're also very bad for jet-to-jet combat. And the reason for that is because they have such low of a muzzle velocity. Now, the 262 in this regard does have the advantage. And the reason for that is because the 262 only has one caliber of shell. The MiG-9 has two, a 37 and a 23. Two 23s to be exact. Now, because of this, the MiG-9 is a lot harder to do well in than in 262. However, the 262 in general is a much better aircraft, in my opinion. The MiG-9, in the hands of a good pilot, is a very good aircraft. However, in my opinion, it is still a pile of shit. Not as much as the Yak jets, but it is up there. So, the MiG-9 is probably the worst entry-level jet that you could go for, and the reason for that is because acceleration is lower than the 262. Maneuverability is pretty piss poor, especially when stock. The guns are terrible. Absolutely beyond god awful. And especially when stock. And it is a very difficult plane to do well in, much like the 262. The thing about the MiG-9 and the 262, and the reason why I recommend the P-80, is because in the 262 and the MiG-9, you have to have extremely high levels of situational awareness in order to do well in the aircraft. Not only that, but you have to have a lot of patience, which is something that most jet pilots are not going to have. Most jet pilots, when they get their first jet, they're going to be very eager to jump into it and just zoom around the map and think that they're just not going to be shot down by anyone. This is total bullshit. Honestly, if you go into a jet in that mindset, you are going to lose your jet every single match that you take it in. You are going to die. And you are going to die not because of any fault of the aircraft, but because your own stupidity. In the P-80, obviously, you can get away with doing stuff like that because of how fast it is. But if you try to do that in a MiG-9, you are only going to die. And if you do it in a 262 as well, you are only going to die. Even in a P-80, you are going to die, but you're going to, at the very least, be able to consistently outrun everything on the map except for F-84s and other P-80s. And that is why I do, even though I don't like the P-80, I do recommend it for new jet pilots. It is a much better alternative to the 262 and the MiG-9. However, if you are a good enough pilot and you are a good enough shot and you have enough patience, the 262 is definitely the plane for you, as well as the MiG-9. However, I would recommend the 262 a lot more than the MiG. So, yeah. I think that's really all I have to say. Actually, no. One more thing. So, for all of those of you who complain that jets are overpowered and that jets shouldn't face props, I have a little bit of information for you. You're full of shit. And here's why. Anybody who is flying a propeller-driven aircraft, going up against early-level jets, the 262, the 162, the Horton, the Meteor, the MiG, the P-80, the Kika, hell, even the R2Y2 and the Arado. Anybody who is flying a piston-driven fighter and is good is never going to have any problems with a jet. Because here's why. In a jet, speed is king. If you slow down, you die. Literally, that is the life of a jet pilot. If you slow down, you are dead. And there is no two ways around it. So, the reason why those of you who bitch and moan about, 262s, P-80s, F-84s, MiGs, the reason why you're having so many problems killing them is because the pilots flying those jets are good pilots. You do not see good P-80 pilots and good 262 and MiG pilots getting into turn fights down on the deck. That is suicide. A good jet pilot is going to gain altitude and boom and zoom you to oblivion. And they are going to do that relentlessly. And the reason is because they know the weaknesses of their aircraft and they are not going to allow you to exploit them. Not only that, but if you climb up to their altitude, you're never going to catch them. The way that you need to catch a jet is you need to be at the very least 3 kilometers above it and get in a dive. And hope that they don't dive away from you. That is how you catch a jet. Aside from, obviously, a Meteor F3 or a Yak jet. Now, if they are at altitude and they dive, forget it. If it's a 262 at 4 kilometers altitude and you are at 3,000 at 4 kilometers and you're at 7,000 meters up, and you dive, and he is at the very least at 400 miles an hour and he dives, you're never going to catch him. You will hit terminal dive velocity before you catch him, and in realistic, you will rip before you catch him. Not only that, but he is going to immediately drop what he is doing and run for the safety of his AAA, and you are going to either be killed by his friendlies or by AAA. You are not going to kill him. So, break. If you are at altitude and you see a jet, dive, don't bother with him. Just let him go. You're not going to catch him. And even if you do manage to close the distance, the second you two level out, you are going to lose all of your speed. And he's just going to rocket away. Because here's the thing about a jet. Even with the 262, even though it will push out past 500 miles an hour in a straight line, in a dive, it can get upwards of 600 miles an hour. However, it won't sustain that. It'll drop back to about 550. The thing about a piston-driven fighter, though, is if it gains up to 500 miles an hour in a dive and then it levels out, it's going to drop down to 300. The energy retention of a jet is much, much, much higher than a prop. At least the 262, the MiG, and the P-80 here, and the F-84, and yada 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 yada. Basically anything except for a yak jet is what I'm talking about here. The energy retention of a jet is much, much better than that of a prop. And, well, actually, even with the yak jets, they have much better energy retention than their propeller-driven counterparts, but they have poor acceleration, and you're probably going to catch them even in a prop. With like a 1 kilometer dive, so there's not really much of anything to worry about with them. Just don't get into a turn fight with it. But yeah, with a jet, because of the fact that because of its higher energy retention, especially with the 262, it has much better energy retention than any prop in the game. Even more so than 190s, you name it. It has better energy retention than every prop in the game. So, yeah, hell, for those of you who love your XP50, yeah, try diving after one of these things. You're not going to catch it. Hell, this thing will outrun a P-47. So yeah, the 262, because of its higher levels of energy retention, and most jets in particular, because of their higher levels of energy retention, they're going to accelerate away, or at least they're going to sustain their speed longer than a prop fighter will. Not only that, but when they hit a certain speed, they are basically going to stay at that speed until they maneuver, and that speed is generally well over 500 miles an hour. Especially with the 262. With an American jet, it's probably in the region of 560 to 570, at least with the P-80. So that it's not going to be something that you're going to catch with any degree of efficiency. So don't even try. Now, how do you catch a jet that's running away from you then? Well, you don't. If a jet runs away from you, you break off. There's no way in hell you're going to catch it. And really, for all of those of you who complain about jets being in prop games, the reason that they're doing so well is because they are good jet pilots. As you saw in this match, I went 5-7-0, and not only that, but I went 5-0 3 times that last night. That was one of those matches, and then of course I went out 7-0 in that one match. So you can do really well in a jet. The problem is that you can't do stupid shit. You have to be smart. And that's what separates good jet pilots from bad ones. Good jet pilots do not get shot down by prop fighters unless they are forced into a very bad situation in which they're not going to be able to come out of it. A bad jet pilot is that P-80 pilot who's down on the deck turning and burning with everything. That is a bad jet pilot. And they are definitely the majority. The reason why you don't see as many bad jet pilots is because those bad jet pilots are the kinds of jet pilots that get themselves shot down very early in the match. So that's why you don't see, that's why the good jet pilots seem to be in the majority. They're not. The good jet pilots are the ones that stand out because they're the ones who are racking up kills and not dying. So, there you go. There's the 262, how you fly it, how you beat it, how you beat a jet in general, how you fly a jet in general, and also my recommendation on an entry-level jet being the P-80, as well as a very unfortunate bit of behavior at the very start of this match, at the very start of this video, which once again I humbly apologize for on behalf of AOD, and I will make sure, even though I'm not an officer, I will do everything that I can to get him banned. That was totally unacceptable. So, anyway, that's all I have to say for this video, and I'm gonna go fly a 190 because I need to spade these damn things. Also, look forward to, in future, a video on, not that thing, on this aircraft right here, the A5U2. As you can see, I have it spaded right now. So yeah, look forward to a video on that aircraft coming soon. And in future, probably one on the D12, the TA-152s as well. And I don't know what else after that. So yeah, I'll see you guys later.